Welcome into Scoop and Score. My name's Tanner, and a late happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving and got home safe. But today I'm going to be breaking down my top 25 power ratings for week 13, rivalry week. And just to clarify, this is a power rating, a Vegas style power rating. This is not a ranking like a playoff style ranking. This is more of a Vegas style power rating where I have a computer model that builds a statistical profile throughout the season of each team. And all this is if both teams or two teams play their average game, who would be favored on a neutral field. So with that all out of the way, let's go ahead and get into it. Starting with number 25, breaking back into the rankings this week, I have Kansas State at 25. At 24, up one spot, I have Oregon State. At 23, breaking into the rankings for the first time all season, I have Air Force. Air Force is actually at least the first time that I can remember, they're the best military team out there. And they're not a great team by any stretch of the imagination, but they are a great running team, great rush offense. So you better be able to stop the run or you're going to struggle to stop Air Force. That's really all there is to it with them. At 22, down 3 spots from last week, I have Wake Forest. They've been on a slide the past couple weeks. They were all the way up around the top 10. I don't think they ever cracked the top 10. But they've been sliding the past couple weeks. Their offense has been coming back to reality, and that overall has been bringing their statistical profile down quite a bit. At 21, I have Cincinnati. They're up 2 spots. At 20, I have Tulane. They're up 4 spots. So watch out for that game this week. Those two teams play each other. That'll pretty much decide who finishes where within the model. Teams 25 through 20, these teams that I'm talking about are all separated by probably less than a point, definitely less than 2 points. So one game's worth of data can shift those two teams quite a bit. Not enough to jump like 10 spots, but definitely enough to swap places with each other. So this is one case where on the field statistics or on the field results will matter, especially because they're playing each other too. But at 19, I have North Carolina. They're down a spot. At 18, I have Ole Miss. They're down a spot. At 17, I have Notre Dame. They're up 4 spots. And this is going to be one of the most controversial ones in my poll. At 16, I have LSU down 1 spot from last week. LSU's been in the right around 15 all year. And I know that's controversial because they're number 5 in the playoff rankings. And a lot of people think they're going to give Georgia a game and maybe even make the playoff. I'm here to tell you, I don't think so. My model doesn't think so. And I don't think Vegas thinks so. I think the number on that game is right around 10 or 14 points, 14 to 17. And then my model has that game right around 10 points. So LSU is a good team. Don't get me wrong by any stretch. LSU is not a bad team by any stretch of the imagination, but I just don't think they're of the caliber of the top 4. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when I get to my top 4. So anyway, moving along here. At 15, I have Texas. They're up a spot. They're the other most controversial team in my poll, or one of the 3. I have 3 pretty controversial rankings in my poll, or power ratings, I should say. And Texas and LSU are 2 of them. Texas, all I can say about Texas is Vegas still agrees with me when it comes to Texas. I know they're a 4-loss team, but they're a good team. And the fact of the matter is they would probably be favored on a neutral field, even by Vegas, over all the teams that are ranked below them. Maybe not LSU, but I think they would be favored over every other team ranked below them on a neutral field by Vegas. So at 14, I have Washington. They're down 1 spot. I think Washington's one of the more underrated teams. They're 14 in my model. I don't think they're even that high in the AP poll or the college football playoff rankings. Washington's a good team. They have 2 bad losses, but they're one of the better offenses in the country, and their defense is not great, but it's not horrible. It's what holds them back. It's why they're not a top 4 team, but it's not bad. Washington's a good team. Up 1 spot, I have Florida State at 13. Really not a whole lot to say about Florida State other than they've been playing top 10. I would even go as far as to say they've been playing top 10 football since they took their losses, which is maybe due to competition, but statistically, even according to my model, which adjusts for statistics as much as possible or adjusts for lesser competition as much as possible, it thinks they've been playing top 10 football. So at 12, I have Utah. They're down 2 spots after taking a loss to Oregon. They played a pretty bad game, and it hurt them statistically, hence why they fell 2 spots. At 11, I have Clemson. They're up 1 spot, which brings us into the top 10 here. So at number 10, I have UCLA. They're down 2 spots from last week after the loss to USC. They also played a pretty bad statistical game. At number 9, I have Penn State. They're back into the top 10 after moving up 2 spots. They've been playing good football after they took the loss to Ohio State too. So keep an eye out for Penn State. They could possibly make a New Year's Six bowl. Possibly not the Rose Bowl because of the loss to Michigan. I was going to say possibly the Rose Bowl, but I don't think so. I do think they'll make a New Year's Six bowl though. At 8, I have Oregon. They're down 1 spot. At 7, I have USC. They're up 2 spots. They played a really good game against UCLA, better than my model thought they would. At 6, I've got Tennessee. They're down 1 spot after a terrible game against South Carolina. I'm kind of surprised Tennessee didn't fall further, to be honest. Anyway, that brings us into the top 5 here. TCU and Tennessee flip-flop spots. TCU is up 1 spot to number 5. And then my top 4 is still the same 4 teams, but we did have a little bit of a shift. So at number 4, I've got Alabama. I know that's another controversial one, but the simple fact of the matter is that Bama would be favored on a neutral field over all the teams ranked below them. I think Vegas is a little lower on Bama than my model is, but I think even Vegas will back that statement up. And I know Bama has the 2 losses, but again, this is a power rating and not a ranking, and the losses don't matter in the eyes of the model. And quite frankly, the model thinks Bama should have won both the games that they lost. To put it into perspective, there's only a 2.5 gap or 3-point gap, 2.5 to 3-point gap between Ohio State and Bama at 4. And then there's an 8.5 point gap between Bama and TCU at 5. So the top 4 teams are pretty solidified. They might shift amongst themselves a little bit, but they've separated themselves from the field quite a bit. So anyway, to continue, I have Georgia down 2 spots. The model did not like how they played against Kentucky. Hit their offense. The model dinged their offense pretty hard for that performance. And it did not think their defense played great against Kentucky either, because Kentucky's offense is terrible. So Georgia's down 2 spots. Again, we're talking tenths of a point between these top 3 teams. The top 3 teams have separated themselves from Bama quite a bit too, in terms of relatively a 1 or 2 point gap to Bama is pretty wide because the top 3 are separated by a point to a point and a half each week. But anyway, at 2 I have Michigan up 1 spot, and at 1 I have Ohio State up 1 spot. So let's go ahead and talk about the gaps just a little bit. I have Ohio State by 2.5 over Georgia, by 2 over Michigan. Michigan and Georgia are separated by less than a half a point, 0.3 of a point. 0.3 is the number I have. Georgia's a half point favorite over Georgia is a half point favorite over Alabama, sorry. And then, like I said earlier, Alabama has an 8.5 point gap to TCU. And then one number I do like to throw in here, there's about a 10 to 11 point gap from Ohio State at 1 to TCU at 5. And then there's only about an 18.5 point gap between Ohio State at 1 and Kansas State at 25. So that gives you an idea that there's only about a touchdown to 10 point gap between number 5 and number 25. So, like I said, the top 4 have really separated themselves from the field quite a bit. And then the last number I have in my notes here that I wanted to say was that I have Georgia by 9.5 over LSU. So we'll see what this week does to that number in terms of my model predictions. But that's going to do it for me on this video, guys. Go ahead and give me your thoughts in the comments below. I do appreciate you watching. Also, if you could leave this video a like and subscribe to the channel, I'd greatly appreciate that. I'd love to talk about college football with you guys. So leave me a comment, like, and subscribe. Appreciate all of it. Have a nice Thanksgiving. Have a nice weekend. Peace.